Peace, family, and welcome to another episode of Underground Railroad Radio with your host, Brother Rich. I'm on the line today with KT, the Arts Degree. Welcome to the show, brother.
Peace, what's going on, Brother Rich?
Well, we got an important one tonight, KT. I need you to bring your A game. I need you to bring your decoding A game, man. It's an important one. And why is it important? Because we're going to be talking about the movie that had the highest first weekend ever in the box office, ever in this country. So the people want to know, what is it about Star Wars? Why does the imagination of the people just gravitate towards it? You know, every time a Star Wars drop, it's like, man, people go crazy. They get the memorabilia. They dress up, they wait in lines. I mean, in New York, they was waiting in the rain to go see this movie, man, the day before it came out. So it was like hysteria. I know we deal with the metaphysics a lot. We deal with the science. So I know there's some deep science within this whole, this Star Wars series. So they just came out with it, like I said, this weekend. It got a lot of attention probably about 8 months ago or something like that, because of the black actor that was in it. And, they had the hashtag boycott Star Wars. That got
them. It was wilding.
Yeah, they was wilding on that one. But, KT, man, I guess before we get into this movie per se, for those who need to get up to date with what this is about, they may have forgotten the whole Star Wars thing from the last time the movie came out. What's the basis of this story here, KT? What is this Star Wars thing all about? Before we get into this movie in particular, what is the purpose of this whole Star Wars franchise?
Oh man, that's a great question. So as I begin, I got to always kind of give people an introduction in regards to what I do, and why I do it. So this is a Hollywood Decoded presentation. And what is Hollywood Decoded? Well, what it represents is the fact that the word Hollywood comes from the wood of a holly tree. This tree, which we're seeing right now during this time, and we're closest to the galactic center, is really the most prevalent plant that exists, because you hear it in the songs and the jingles. You deck the halls with balls of holly. No matter where you are, you see this sharp green leaf with these bright red berries. Well, the wood from this particular plant was what was used to create the wands for the witches and the warlocks, and the wizards. So when you use the term Hollywood, you're dealing with magic. You're talking about magic. And when we deal with the industry of Hollywood and film, you're dealing with a magical phenomenon. These are people that are using our highest quantum mechanic, our divination systems, in order to formulate and create worlds, or rather portals and gateways and doorways into other worlds, because we live on different planes of existence. There are different dimensions. Even scientists say that there's infinite worlds and infinite universes out there, so we're dealing with different worlds. And Hollywood is a generator that deals with gaining access to other worlds. Now, when one is not privy to the fact that they are contracting into a particular quantum experience, then what happens is their consciousness and their spirit is up for grabs. You see, it's able to be manipulated and used as an energy conduit to push a machine forward, so to speak. When one's eye is open and they're able to recognize the keys that are hitting within inside the film, well, then that doorway becomes something more beneficial to the viewer rather than to one that's hoping that you're ignorant of it. So as I said, it was Hollywood. And in order to get a movie going, you have to greenlight a film, and the first step is to write it. Before there's any pitches or anything like that, they have to write this film. They have to get a writer. And when they get a writer's job is to essentially put the story together. We are talking a griot. We know, as an African people, that our history has always been from mouth to ear, generation to generation, through story form. allegory. So that's what these films are. They represent an allegorical embodiment of African cosmology. In order for you to write, you have to put letters together to form a word, and what that's called is, it's real simple. In order to put letters together, it's called spelling. Okay, so we're dealing with Hollywood. Now we're dealing with spelling, and the next stage after it's written is to start to hire actors, which they call stars, right, in order to play this role, which they look at specifically based upon their signs, their astrological charts. That's why they're called stars. They distinguish each other by their birthdays and their energies. So, these stars are then what? They're casted, you see, because that's what they call it. They call it casting. So you have a wand in which you're casting spells, you see, so there's a magical phenomenon occurring. Now, in this process of casting stars, what we have here is a film called Star Wars. You see what I'm saying? And you know that society loves controversy. They love a good drama. You know, our tales are tragic and traumatic. So we're dealing with an allegorical tale that is trying to tell the story of a cosmological origin. And that's what Star Wars is all about. So you ask, what is so important about this franchise? What is so powerful about this franchise? Well, we're dealing with the root. There's nothing being hidden. See, usually you watch a film and they're embodying the astrological principles within the storyline. But in this particular anthology, you're dealing with a situation where the stars are actually in the stars. We're dealing with a cosmological storyline at its first level. There's no filter. And innately, people are able to relate to that because we know of our cosmic origins deep inside our subconscious mind. We know that this is a pit stop, that this is a bus stop, that this is a situation for us to have spirit to learn, you know, before we move on to our next level. We know that there's something more written in the stars for us, and that's what this story gives. Now, why is this particular story more powerful or more effective than all the other sci-fi tales that are out there? Well, Star Wars was one of the first to do it on the level that they did. They took some real risque microcosmic applications to create effects that then stood out in a macrocosmic fashion. This does something to the psychology. This does something to the mind, you know. Now, Joseph Campbell, who is a powerful literary individual who's responsible for, well, not responsible, but is definitely seen in regards to his application in mythology in modern times. He is the go person in order to look at mythos in our history and see how it plays a role in our psychology. See, our psychology is able to be told in a very comprehensible fashion when it's done in allegorical form. And the mythologies of antiquity did a phenomenal job in being able to decode and break down how our psychology is to be in its most optimum state. You see what I'm saying? Through a story. And this is what Star Wars is doing. Now, when anybody thinks of Star Wars, their first thought, before they think about Luke Skywalker, is Darth Vader. Darth Vader is who everyone comes to mind with. I mean, Yoda's going to come, don't get me wrong. We're going to think of Luke too. But nobody gets as much attention as Darth. Now, why is Darth Vader so important? Why is he so powerful in all of this? Well, you know, if we holler at my brother A.A. Rashid, he'd be able to let you know that he's that hidden Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, which is called the Das. You see, that binds the Keter, the bind and the Shakman. And this Das, or this force, this energy that Darth Vader represents, I mean, look at him. Most people don't even pay attention to it, but where does that helmet come from? Why is that helmet there? That helmet is there that black cape is there and that all black attire is there because he represents the melanated phallus. He is the carbonated phallus, the erection, you see? Because that is the force. That is the force that drives, is this particular tool that is utilized to inject a spark of thought and intent into the womb of the female energy so that that thought, that inception can then start to germinate, proliferate, and grow. You see? And the reason, the way you can tell that Darth Vader is that is when you look at his helmet. And when you look at how he conducts himself. But most importantly, one of his most distinguishable features is the Now, what is that? Why is the breath so important with Darth Vader? Why, before anything else, we recognize that breathing rhythm? Because the sexual play, copulation, the tantric arts deal all with breath, erection, deals all with breath, virility, deals all with the prana. And that was the one thing he had a problem doing, was the breathing, you see. And what was the voice of Darth Vader was James Earl Jones, who we also known as being Mufasa, or we also known as being King Joffrey Joffa, husband of Oeleon. Always playing a royal part. It was the black man's voice, it was the black man's breath, and it was the carbonated melanated phallus, which represented the force. Now, what happens to sexual energy when it goes to the dark side? It's powerful because, see, it fuels our world. Everything that we deal with has a sexual undertone to it. You see? This is why everybody gravitates towards it. If you want to sell anything, only thing you have to do is put a black dick in it. And you guarantee to sell them tickets. We learned this from Frances Cress Wilson in the Cress theory of color confrontation. You see? She broke it all down with the War of the Balls, with the cigar and the cigarette, you know, in the ISIS papers. Now, in this particular story with Star Wars, you know, most people have seen the films, you know, the A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, episodes 4, 5, and 6, you see? And in this story, there is an individual by the name of Darth Vader that has the potential to balance the energies in the universe, because, you know, it's always a further process in growth and development in life. And even the universe is striving for further balance, you see. So there was a balance that was necessary that Anakin Skywalker was supposed to establish, but before he got a chance to, he was seduced by the dark forces and the dark energy. Now, when I say dark forces and dark energy, that's almost because, you know, there are dark arts. There are dark energies and dark forces that we utilize as an African people in order to do particular things, you know. But they were very distinguishable in regards to what they meant by the dark side of the force, which was represented by the emperor. And the emperor was nothing more than the Pope. If you look at the pictures of the emperor and the Pope, they look like twins. You see, so they were talking about the religious order, the religious factor, the Spanish Inquisition, all those people that fall in that role. This is who the emperor represented, and that dark energy of religion that they used to usurp your personal light. You see, they converted Darth Vader, you see, into what they felt that they can spread across the world as Christianity and the other religions have done by spilling blood. You see, they weren't able to do it themselves. They needed the energy of the people who had the power, so they had to convert the people so that the resonant steel of our hearts can be contaminated with that dark force that they possess, and use us in order to spread the disease and the contaminant around the world. So the initial series of Star Wars dealt with the battle of this particular infecting contaminated energy and the pure force that we have inherent inside that makes us the children of the Creator, that makes us one with the universe, that natural order that when you close your eyes and you meditate and you link up your energy centers and you breathe and you focus and that qigong gets flowing inside your system, how you're able to smell and feel and taste and get in tune with the nature and the universe that's around you. So whatever decisions you have to make, actions you have to take, they're right on time. You see, you are granted a doorway. You are granted a way into another world because you are now at one. And that's what the Force is. You see what I'm saying? So, you had different players that had different roles within inside the initial story, and they were all there to shuffle around the progress, or the regression of dark and light and dark, because we know we're dealing with solar cycles. You have lunar cycles and you have solar cycles. Everybody has their time. The reason why a certain group of people have a certain amount of influence is because we're dealing with a certain cycle of time right now, which deals with those dark forces. You see, but as the light resurrects, as the Force awakens, you see, then the rightful people that are able to utilize and get in tune with that Force, can then reestablish the balance that is necessary in the universe.
So the fast forwarding to this movie that just came out, right? With that being said, we have a general idea of what this franchise is dealing with. What do you think? What message were they trying to convey with this particular movie that just came out this weekend? That's number one all over the world and that broke records all over the world, because they're obviously trying to go in a certain direction for the next, 20 years, with introducing new characters into the franchise. So, what message do you think, KP?
That the black man is the leader of the revolution. I'll say that again. That the black man is the leader of the revolution. Because what we saw when we watched The Force Awakens was a black man take on the job, the duty, the responsibility of being a leader to a successful revolution. Regardless of how it was weaved around, that was the gist of the story. So let's look at this. Let's look at this movie, okay? So we're dealing with episode 7. Episode 7. Now, to give y'all an understanding, when it first came out in 1977, and there were lines all around the corner, we were dealing with episode 4. So George Lucas, who was born in 1944, that's for you, Blue, when he brought Star Wars out, he didn't start from the beginning. He started in the middle of the story and called it episode 4. All right? Then they released episode 5 and episode 6. Then what happened during the top of the millennia was they ended up creating a prequel where they finally introduced episode 1, 2, and 3. So now we know the whole story. You know, how Vader used to be in the light and he turned dark, and who his teachers were and what was going on. Like, we get a better understanding. So now we're dealing with the original sequel of the 3 originals they brought out in the 70s. This one is episode 7. Now, when you're dealing with 7, okay, you're dealing with 7 notes, you're dealing with 7 chakras. You know, that 7 energy is a spiritual energy, a spiritual force. So right away they're trying to let you know, as magical as we might have been in these past 40-some-odd years, we are now finally ready to take the step into a more spiritual conversation. All right? And this is why they introduced John Boyega. Now, Boyega shares the same last name as another brother that was responsible for the impact of sci-fi in the 70s, and this was the movie Aliens. Okay, this brother Boyega in Aliens was the actual alien himself. He was like a 8'3" tall South African that they were trying to do all types of graphics and all that type of stuff to get the alien look, but they was like, yo, we got to find somebody who's just tall. So one day they was in South Africa and they called George Lucas, like, you got to see this dude in the bar. He came over there and saw him. He got the part. So all the aliens that you see in all these movies are a remnant or a residue of this Boyega brother, you know, from the 70s. All right? Now, here we go with John Boyega, who plays this role in this movie. His name is Finn, but in actuality, his name is FN2187. Now, what the hell are they talking about there? Well, if you want to get a better understanding of George Lucas and where he gets his filming, his cinematography from, and where he got the idea of the Force, you would have to look at a movie called 2187, okay, which is a collage of B footage from a director named Arthur Lipset. The Canadian Film Academy took all his B footage and made this collage film called 2187. And in it, it has all these pictures of people like in New York and in different cities and dressed up all strange and weird, but it's the angles and it's the color. It was in 1963 when this thing dropped. And in here, they're talking on like some Monarch program shit. They're dropping information on immortality. You see, they have a voiceover during these collages, and during the voiceover, they're talking about how to become an immortal. And they say in order to do this, you have to tap into the Force. So it was 2187 that gave Lucas the concept and the idea to name this all-pervasive energy the Force. And for some reason, when they hit the 7th level, they decided to give it to a black man, right? And name him FN2187. So I find that very interesting that the Force Awakens, and they named the brother after the film in which they even discovered the term Force. You know? Now, John Boyega, who was in a movie called Attack the Block, where these aliens came down to the hood and was trying to regulate, and he defended the kingdom. You know what I'm saying? And he played a real powerful role in that. He was up for the Black Panther with Chadwick Boseman. You know what I'm saying? But they funneled him this way. Now, when we meet Finn, you know, he's FN2187. He's a stormtrooper. Okay? Anytime you deal with stormtroopers in the desert, you got to deal with Mahat and Epitomac, which is the Black Panther energy, the lion energy, the son of Basset. Because he is he's the stormtrooper in the desert. And that's why we see him as a stormtrooper in the desert. Initially, he's rocking with the stormtroopers. They going around like the Inquisition to all the tribal, indigenous areas. They burning the books. Well, they not burning the books. They snatching up the books. They raping the women. They killing the children. They snatching up the men, you know, trying to convert them. You see what I'm saying? And in this particular scene, there was an elder that was passing a key, a map, along to another individual by the name of Poe Dameron. Okay? Now, when you hear the word Poe, please don't be mistaken. Don't get it twisted, because Poe stands for Poe Tolo. Tolo means star. Poe means smallest seed. This is the name of Sirius B by the Dogon. The Dogon live in the desert, okay, in Mali, which looks just like Jakku, you know, where the planet where the movie started off. And when you hear the word Jakku, you know that sounds like Jakku. And the reason why it sounds like Jakku is because this is the planet where the Empire and the Republic were battling, and all of the beat-up, tore-up starships lie there. It's a graveyard. It's scavengers. So people are mutating. You see what I'm saying? Remember, starship represents your physical body. Your body is your starship. So this is a planet that represents that Yakud energy. They're exchanging a map on this planet. You see? And this map is to lead them to Luke Skywalker. Remember, Luke means Lucas. It means Lucifer. It means light, Skywalker, stars, constellations. So it's talking about a star map to lead you to the place where the light is at. And where is the light? The light is a particular degree, and this degree is on the pyramids, and they show you that at the end of the movie, but we're going to get there. All right? Just warming y'all up. So Poe represents the Dogon. He's receiving a key. You know, another reason why you know Poe represents the Dogon in you is because he is accompanied by a droid, and the name of this droid is called BB-8. What is BB-8? BB is 22. It's 2 and 2. Okay, that's 4 and the 8. So you talking about halves. What are you dealing about with this math? We're talking about 4 sets of twins. We are talking about the Nomos. Because Dogon speaks of their ancestors being an amphibious people called the Nomos. And these Nomos were 4 sets of twins. It was 8 of them in all, but it was 4 sets of 2. So BB-8 or 22-8. Okay, remember 22 is amino acids, you know, so when you look at that 22-8 combination, it lays on different levels, you see? And the reason why you know it's the 22/8 and the Poe is because Poe directly connects with FN-2187, and he names him. What does he name him? He names him Finn, because he's the star Sirius B. You know, Sirius B is what gave birth to the Nomos, which gave birth to Finn, the force of the Finn. And if you don't believe me, I want you to look at John Boyega's birthday, and what you're going to find out, he was born on March 17, 1992, which makes him a Pisces. Poe Dameron, which is played by Oscar Isaac, he was born on 3/9/1979. He's 36. He's also a Pisces. So we're dealing with the fish energy of the Nomos here. And the passing of the key. This key represents the eye, a portion of the eye of Heru. This is why on all of the posters, they have the left eye showing. You see? BB-8 is an eyeball. This is why it's just like your eyeball has an orbital where it's able to rotate in all directions, and then it has a pupil that sits on top. His head was the pupil. His body was the orbit of the eye. And he contained a portion of the eye of Heru because R2-D2 at the end of the movie was able to give you the whole eye. So that means BB-8 had the 1/64th, which is, they call the teardrop or the pedestal, you know what I'm saying, of the eye of Heru. That's what he had. And even if you look at the shape of the map, it was the same shape as the 1/64 fraction. R2-D2 had the 63/64. You see? So when he put his 1/64 with the 63/64, they had the hole. The light came, they was able to find light, the Lucas, which was awaiting them on a mountain. This mountain is called Michael Skellig. Okay? Michael Skellig's coordinates on the planet, this is why they picked this island, because it represents a capstone, a bend zone, is 51 degrees. And if you want to know the angular slope of a pyramid, you will find out it is 51 degrees. You see what I'm saying? And this is why the light was waiting for Ray, right, at the end of the movie. Okay, let's back up, because I just went all the way to the end of the movie and just, you know what I'm saying? I'm excited. All right, so let's back up some. So let's go back to Finn, all right? Like I said, Finn's a stormtrooper. He wilding out. What happens is the blood hit him. He's witnessing and reliving the experiences that is in his blood, you see, because his people went through this same situation. And that's the problem with us right now. As much as we talk about how we getting banged on, we always talk about him as if he's a banger, when we have every resource, every ounce of strength, and all the knowledge necessary to stop fucking getting banged on. You see? He recognized that in that moment when his brother died and he swiped the blood on his face. 3 strikes. You see? Because now he's acquiring them upper 3 chakras. He's hitting that higher thought. You remember the Force Awakens. And it was the scratching. He got scratched. This was straight up African magical practices occurring right now because that blood touched that stormtrooper, that white, and he felt that energy. You see? He felt that energy. He felt that force, and it woke him up. You see? Now, when it woke him up, what did he do? Did he go back to sleep? No, he didn't. And the interesting thing is the villain, Kylo Ren, when he was walking back on the ship, he picked up that energy. It was so strong that he couldn't even do nothing about it. He could just acknowledge it and keep on moving. So then, when we get back to the ship, you got Finn now, right? He hooks up with Poe Dameron. He's like, yo, I'm going to break you up out of here. I need a pilot. He was like, yo, I know where I could get you a ship. That's the same thing with spirit and the body. Remember, the nomos represents the flesh. The Sirius represents the energy enveloped in it. Poe is the seed. It represents the physical manifestation of the spirit in the flesh. So he's like, yo, you need a pilot. He's the pilot. He's the navigator of the ship. The Finn is the ship. You see, is the flesh. So what do? They find a TIE fighter. A TIE fighter. What is a TIE fighter? TIE fighter stands for TIE. Twin ion engines. Okay? Twin ion engines. I just told you. BB-8, right? 22-8 represents 4 sets of twins. I said his name is Finn. He is Dogon. He represents the nomos, those 4 sets of twins. Now he gets with Poe. And what do? They find the TIE fighter. TIE stands for TIE, twin ion engines. I didn't write that. That's what they call. So they get inside the TIE fighter. They try to take off, but they can't take off because their umbilical is still connected. Anybody, I dare you to go get the book Yurunga by Marimba Ani. I dare you to go read any of the text on the Dogon, and you're going to find out that the only reason why we're here on Earth is because the placenta was ripped away and the umbilical was torn, you see, from the original twin, and this particular world was formulated from that. And we're dealing with this in our face when the TIE fighter is still connected to the ship. And they trying to get away, but they can't get off. He has to break the umbilical. He has to rip from the ship because he's transforming. You see, he was part of the stormtrooper. He was with the Nazis. You see, he was banging on his own people, and he had to get up out of there. But he was still connected, so he had to let it go. All right? So as he lets it go, this is when he receives his name because Poe's like, yo, what's your name? He's like, oh, it's FN 2187. He's like, what? He was like, that's the only name I've ever known. That's straw man. That's your social security number, your tax identification. You ain't nothing but a goddamn fucking statistic here. But what is your name? Are you Bobby? Are you John? Are you Mary? Is that who you are? Or are you fucking like green nebula data ion flux modulator? You know, like, who are you? You know what I'm saying? So when he heard his name was FN, he was like Finn. Naturally, Sirius would name the nomos. Okay? Nomos wouldn't be the other way around. Now, let me give y'all another little tidbit. Oscar Isaac, who's playing Poe, he is also Ed Staff Noah, which is the name of the mutant called Apocalypse. And for anybody looking forward to seeing X-Men on May 27th, which is Left Eye's birthday, hence Left Eye, as I spoke of in this movie, right? He is playing the role of Apocalypse. He is Apocalypse, who has the 4 horsemen, who are the 4 sons of Heru. Apocalypse is the first mutant. He is he's supposed to be the person who settled Kemet, built the pyramids and everything. And this is who this individual is playing, this Piscean. All right? Now, so they crash on Jakku. When they crash on Jakku, now we're going to start finding out about another character. All right? By the name of Rey. Now, like I said, one of the reasons why franchise does so well is because they ain't hiding nothing. They telling you what it is. So you get this girl They got a white girl with the name Ray. Now, we all know it's supposed to be a sister. I'm putting it on record right now because the Force Awakens is not a single-handed event. It takes two people because the only reason why a brother's Force awakens is because there's a Force present. You see? You know, the woman causes our force to awaken. And then once our force is awakened, then we dance. And through our dance, we find out our godly nature through procreation. So here we have a woman by the name of Daisy Riley. And I find it interesting they picked her because she's an Aries. You know what I mean? And by her being an Aries, what does that mean? That means that she represents the energy of the ram, the head, the war, the Martian energy that is so prevalent right now. The Ramses, you see, the horns. And we know how prevalent the ram is in Kemet and what that energy deals with, you know? So when we find her, she is interesting because you got to see how all this stuff connects. Like I talked about BB-8. He's 22-8. He represents the nomos with the four sets of twin. He represents the octode, which is also the four sets of twin, the snakes and the frogs, which was the primordial processes that occurred prior to Atum and Ra coming into existence. When Daisy first is shown, remember, we go from BB-8, which is the octode energy, right? And then we go into her being on there with the full wrap around her face and the frog eyes. When you're looking at her, she looks like a Muppet. She looks like a frog. She looks like an amphibian. You know, then she takes it off and then we see her face. And what she is doing is she's obviously in the brain. She's in the limbic brain. Okay? Manipulating, dealing with the pineal gland. It is dealing with a calcified energy center. Okay, that's what this deteriorating Death Star really is representing. You see, and she's harvesting from these areas what little energy is left to compensate for nutrients, which your body does when it goes into autoimmune attack. You start sacrificing parts of your body just to sustain other parts, and this is what we get when we meet her. When she comes outside of the ship, she's standing there in this big semicircle with rays coming out of it, letting you know it's the sun. She gets on Ra's boat. She gets on the little Ra's boat, and she comes down from on high, back onto the realm of the living. Okay? And she starts loading up her ship, and the last thing she puts on is a Wa scepter, just like all of the Netses carried. And her name being Daisy is very interesting because daisies are in the family of Astraceae, okay? With Aster or Asteraceae, which deals with the sunflowers, okay? All of those flowers that have all the rays sticking out, they come from the family Aster. Her name is Daisy, so they named her Ray. She represents the Ray energy, and that Ray energy is prominent within inside the black woman. She is having a resurrection right now. Her energy, her force is coming up. It's coming up in respect to us because we are stimulating. And as we are stimulating her, she is receiving. And as she's receiving, she is germinating and growing and developing and swelling. That is the mound to give birth, all right? To give birth to the force. All right. So, as we push forward, so now we see her rationing, okay? And in her rationing, she ends up coming across BB-8, who has a piece of this eye, okay? She ends up going back into town and finding out what its true worth is, because upon looking at the eye at first, it was of no value. She wanted to get rid of it. But when she noticed the amount of nutrients and sustenance she would receive in trade for it, peep the science, that's when she understood how important this eye was. All right? So, let's go back to Finn and Poe. Finn and Poe is evading, right? They're getting away from the ship and everything. They get hit. They crash. When they crash, Poe's disappeared. Now it's just Finn. Of course Poe disappeared. Poe represents that spiritual energy. You know, now we're dealing with the physical flesh of the Finn, of the nomos. He's in the desert. He strips himself of the stormtrooper attire because the stormtrooper attire was white. It represented that Nazi, eugenic, Paleolithic, you know what I'm saying, Caucasoid, white supremacist energy. This is what he was garbed and clothed in. And when he landed, he couldn't even breathe. He was sweating about to die. He had to take it off. When he took it off, what did he have on? He had black pants. He had a black shirt. You see? And then the only other thing he had was a brown leather jacket with red on it. Okay? So we talking blood. We talking melanin. The only thing he was missing was green. He was almost RBGing on him. Now, the reason why he had to strip that white down was because he was walking through the desert. He was walking through Jakku. And the sun was beaming down, and that melanin had to breathe. He had to synthesize and transmute that energy and those forces inside of him so that he could survive. And not just survive, but remember what a desert is in a film, okay? It's not just a desert. It's the desert of the mind. It's the wasteland. You see? It's the place where you got to figure shit out because there ain't nobody there to distract you. And the environment is so extreme that you have to think ahead. Okay? You can't just relax and kick it, or else you're going to end up being another grain of fucking sand sweeping through the sands of time. So that's what it means spiritually at this moment in the film with him as he lands here. You see, he has transformed himself. He went from being a stormtrooper, you know what I mean, to braving the storm. So, luck would have it, he comes across the same town that Ray's at. He finds Ray. And as he finds Ray, their initial meeting was a little awkward because he felt the need to grab her hand and hold her hand and take her. She like, yo, you don't need to hold my hand. I got this. You know what I'm saying? And that's true with women. Women are able to run by our sides. Like, we don't need to be afraid of that. Because a lot of these sisters was warriors back in the day. When you see them in the street now, you see some of these women, I know you know that she wasn't home cooking no apple pie. You know what she was doing back in the day. Zing and them was putting in work. So you have those. And you're dealing with an aspect of Ra that is balancing between these different types of energies. You know? Now remember, she starts bringing the force up in her, which lets you know that she needs to eventually be trained to be a Jedi. Okay? Where does the word Jedi come from? Well, we should know that the word Jed represents a particular energy conduit or generator that resides in Kemet. That comes from Kemet. All right? And it means steadfastness. It means backbone. Okay? But what is your backbone? Your backbone deals with piezoelectricity. You know, as your vertebrae encapsulates and envelops your spinal cord, which is called the cauda equina, which means horsetail. All right? And this horsetail is a membranous, gelatinous fluid cord that contains your cerebral spinal fluid. This cerebral spinal fluid is your plasma that generates high-frequency resonance fields that, when compressed by the spine, is able to release surges of these energies and permeate throughout your system so your source within can touch the extremities without. And that's what the whole concept of the force is. So this is why they're called the Jedi. You see? This is why the brother was the first one to hold the lightsaber in the movie. He got the lightsaber. Now tell me this. If he's not a Jedi and he don't got the force, what's he doing rocking with the Jedi weapon? Why does he have the lightsaber in his hand? Why is he going in? And not just that, not only is he going in, but how is he holding his own to who is supposed to be the baddest person on the dark side in the universe right now? Unless he is the Force. Because the Force didn't awaken until he woke up. It was when he woke up and realized what he was doing, that's when the Force awakened. And he felt that. And this is why Kylo Ren, the villain, ended up going to Snoke, which was the big emperor-looking dude, the giant, that Nephilim-looking cat that was talking over them. This is why he went to him right away, and he was like, yo, do you feel that awakening? And he was like, yes, I do. It was the unification of these masculine and feminine energies. It's not like we don't know women are capable of doing what we do. Like, we know you can do. We know you can read. We know you're intelligent. We know you're capable. You give birth, of course. We just like, yo, you don't got to do it all. You don't got to do it all. And we don't even have to, compete. We don't have to race, We can actually compliment one another. And when we compliment one another, then we move forward. And that's what was occurring in the movie. They were complimenting each other. So I don't see no romantic future with them. Don't get me wrong. The black man, Caucasian female agenda isn't full effect, of course. The children, they're not going to be able to distinguish what's really going on. They're going to see that energy there. So, I'm not to say that is not one of their tools, their marketing tools to ensure that their genetic inadequacy can utilize some of the potent genetic stock, you know what I'm saying, that is intended and inevitable of surviving, the increases of frequencies as we move forward in these next states of existence that we're dealing with right now. They're definitely trying to lock in. Frances Cress Wilson, she gave us all that gem 40 years ago, with the ISIS papers, so we know what it is. All right, so before I keep going, did you have any questions, brother?
Yeah, I got just a couple of questions. Why do we keep seeing why do we keep seeing this theme of the son killing the father? In the last one, we seen Luke kill Darth Vader, and this one we seen what's his name, Ben?
No, that's wrong. It's not about the son killing the father. The fathers are killing themselves. The fathers are killing themselves. You see? Mm-hmm. The fathers are killing themselves because of the choice that they're making. In the choice they're making, they will a son into existence. What is your son here to do? Your son is to rectify. You see? Han Solo said it himself in the movie. He said, I went backwards. I went back to what I knew. He went back to being a pirate again. He just fought this huge war, saw the Force, saw the Jedi, saw the light, married royalty, Princess Organa, Layla Organa, did all that, and then 30 years later, he's still on a beat up ship with the dog, with the giant. That essentially is where the Caucasian comes from. The Bigfoot, hairy, Chewbacca. That's what they do. They chew Chewbacca. You know what I'm saying? And his name is Han Solo because that denotes not getting with a woman. That's masturbation. He's Han Solo. So that type of energy that they represent is not warranted in fifth dimension, sixth dimension, seventh, and higher states of consciousness. He went backwards. And in him going backwards, he was the one that really pushed his son to the dark side. Because if he had been there, if he had been the light, his wife said it to him. He said, yo, what can I do? If, the head Jedi couldn't do nothing. She like, yo, he a Jedi. You his father. That's you, nigga. So by the time he did it, he did reestablish the balance in the Force because his sacrifice is not gonna be undone. Like, that's karmic. It's gonna come back around. You know what I'm saying? But that's a price he had to pay. And Darth Vader had to pay that price too. He got too deep in the bed with the Emperor. He's bending over all types of ways, letting the Emperor tear that thing up. And the only way he was able to revert back all the damage he had done, he had to sacrifice himself. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? No, he had to sacrifice himself.
When we constantly keep hearing this term, the Force. Now, when you study metaphysics, you learn about consciousness. What is consciousness? Consciousness is everything. Everything is animated by consciousness. So you have this term that we know of, consciousness, we keep hearing this term, the Force, which kind of, it kind of reminds me of what we would term consciousness, whatever we have to use to animate anything down here. But then we have the dark side. So what distinguishes the Force from the dark side? Because in the beginning you mentioned you compare dark side to melanin, but then in the movie we're looking at the dark side as something evil. So then the person will automatically associate melanin with something evil. So is there consciousness, the dark side, the Force, and melanin? Try to compare all those.
That's right. They equated the dark side with Caucasians, because every time the dark side was there, we saw white stormtroopers. Okay, and even with Kylo Ren, when he took off his mask, he looked like one of them 1600 Spanish Inquisitor Portuguese cats. You know what I'm saying? They made sure that when we looked at Snoke, who was the giant, that was giving them all the orders, pasty pale. He was voiced by Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis is Gollum from Lord of the Rings. He was Claw in the Avengers. And let's not forget, he's born on April 20th. He got Hitler's birthday. Okay? So he represents Hitler up in there. Remember, they prayed to the Black Sun. So, see, that dark Force represents a perversion of the Force. See, the dark side don't exist without the Force. Okay? Let's get that to our head. There's no dark side without the Force. The dark side represents the mishandling and the misuse of the Force. This is why they always have to recruit strong, powerful Jedis into their organization to do their bidding, because that's the only way they could do it is through the Force. When we looked at the movie Rise of the Guardians, when they had all of the different holiday people in the movie playing like gods, they told you the only way the boogeyman was able to get any power was through the Sandman, because the Sandman represents the dreams of the children. The only way the boogeyman or the nightmares can get in is by way of the dream. Okay? So that's what it all represents with the Force. So when they say the Force awakens, they're talking about the consciousness, like not just the fact that the Force exists and we can manipulate it and use it good or bad, but the consciousness, the intelligence in it that denotes, nigga, we supposed to be on a higher frequency, not on that low shit. So that's ELF frequencies. That's what the dark side is. Okay, the dark side represents the ELF. It represents the heart. It represents the cell phone radiation. It represents the xenobiotics, all of the electropollution that's bombarding our bodies and mutating us. It represents the GMOs. Okay, it represents studying the order of the universe and utilizing it for your own selfish need that has nothing to do with staying consistent with the order of the universe. That's what the dark side is. And the reason why they wear black is because they know that they have to have that involved if there's power at all. That's the source of the power. But they tell the reason why it's black and white is because they're saying this is how we would use your melanin. We would use it like this, motherfucker, all day.
Now, how was the?
And that's what they was doing. Yeah.
How was the girl Ray? How was she able to use this when she was battling one of the baddest dark side dudes out there? She was able to defeat him by using the Force, but she had no training. She had no training at all.
She wasn't able to defeat him. They were able to defeat him. The masculine and feminine energies, using the Force together complementary, was able to defeat him. Remember, he fought him first. Finn fought him first, slowed him down. Got him scared because he's like, who is this cat? He drew blood. He caught him in the shoulder. He already got shot in the side by Chewbacca. That's why he kept banging on his side on his liver like that. Right? And then here he come and he caught him in the shoulder. He laid him out. That's why he had to hit him. And where did Kylo Ren strike Finn in order to lay him flat? He caught him in the back. The jet pillar. You see? He marked him. Mm-hmm. You know? That inspired Rey. What are you talking about? You don't think the fucking deluge didn't come up out of her after she saw what he did there? She jumped up. She used that goddamn force that she received from him because he represents the black phallus. Huh? She received them, took that energy, and tore that nigga a new one. Because, see, we are both powerful on our own, but when we work together, it's a whole nother beast. Another way you know that your boy Finn was a nomos is because the Dogon themselves say that nomos means to make one drink. The minute that he found Ray was the first thing he did when he came down to her town. He found the water. He was like, water, right? And he got in there and he drank the water with that big beast because he's drinking. Making his claim, identifying himself in his universe. You know? Now, she was able, like I said, the reason why the force was coming up in her was because what did she do? She touched the jet. She touched Luke's lightsaber. Okay? She went to see Maz Kananda. All right? Maz Kananda was Lupita Nyong'o's part. Lupita Nyong'o is the freaking drop-dead super gorgeous who should have been the real Ray. Sister, you know what I'm saying, that we saw, we've been seeing in a few movies lately. She got on the scene with 12 Years a Slave, unfortunately. That's how she entered in. But she's had a few roles since that, and she's amazing. And, oddly enough, they get this beautiful black woman, and what do? They motion capture her and turn her into some orange Yoda looking like cat, which is like so whack. I'm sitting there like, how y'all not just gonna have her be who she is? How could you deny Lupita time on the screen? I'm like, how perverted is your mind that you rob the audience of being able to see this beautiful queen? But she's so fine and she's so right that just through her voice, through that character, she still was goddamn powerful. And she played the Oracle. She played the eye. She peeping how all this eye symbolism comes. She had them big-ass goggles, and she was adjusting them. And she said, one of the most powerful lines I've heard in film to date. She said, I've been around for a very long time. She said, same eyes in different bodies. I said, oh, no, she did. Yo, that was solid. That was so real. That line was so powerful. That's why, a lot of people who've seen this movie, it wasn't as explosive to them. They felt kind of, some people didn't feel, they couldn't deny how dope it was, but they was like, But I was like, yo, it was in the writing, it was the subtlety of it all that made it so strong, So she supposedly is the last person who has Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. Now, if he represents Luke, if he represents the light, that's his saber, that's his sword. That's his tongue, that's his word. That's his backbone. And she holds it. The black woman has it. See, so the subtleties are powerful. Keeping it down in the dungeon, in the chest, subconscious mind, that light being held. So Ray, it got called to her because remember, the force connects and binds us all. So if you have a certain amount of force in you, then the people that are behind the scenes in the other dimensions, in other realities, in the other worlds, they are able to read your energy and they're going to try and influence you. They're going to try just like your ancestors do. When you sit down and you light your candles and you have your altar and you say, divine and loving ancestors, help me get through these times. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. Like when you invoke that, like they respond. They respond. You see? So she was in a very, very intense moment. Which remember, puberty, when the hormones change, traumatic events, starts getting certain hormones to flow, which then allows the mind to see things that they normally would not see, to understand things they normally would not understand, and to exhibit a level of strength that they usually do not possess. So in this instance, it triggered enough for her to have a vision. Once again, Ray, she was able to see, just like the Lord of the Rings with the flaming eye that they had, and she was able to connect and find out, not only what happened, what was happening, and things that might transpire. She dealt with past, present, and future simultaneously. Because she touched the light. Now, when Maz came down, it was like, this is the black woman is looking at Ray. You see what I'm saying? She like, yo, this is for you. It's calling you. Here you go. She like, nah, son, I don't want that. But guess who did receive it? Finn. Finn received it. Finn grabbed it. Finn held it. Finn wielded it. And he had to go against a stormtrooper, and the stormtrooper was giving him business. But remember, we're talking about no Force. We're talking about no Jedi. What we're talking about is the fact that Finn was the Force and was the Jedi, the living, breathing Jedi. And demonstrated it countless times. You know? So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, definitely. At the end, the fighting scene with Ben and what's the name, Ray, kind of reminded me of the fighting scene from Enter the Last Dragon when Bruce Leroy was fighting.
Oh man, yeah.
It kind of reminded me.
Right.
They both had different glows. The glows were different colors, and their lightsabers are different colors. Like his is like a reddish orange or something like that.
Yeah, his was red, and he represented that Spanish Inquisition, that Christianity, because he carried the cross. He carried the burning cross everywhere he went.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And they had the blue. So that represented ultraviolet spectrum. So that lets you know what his frequency was. He was on the red. He was on what is that? 700 nanometers, which is a wider field, which is a wider space, which means lower frequency. They're more on the 300 range, the ultraviolet, the higher frequency. You know. Now, he's a Pisces, she's an Aries, and Kylo Ren's a Scorpio. That's why he had all that death and deceit, manipulative force, power, emotion. Yeah, he was a Scorpio. He represented Scorpion energy, religion, you know? And his name is Adam Driver. You know, weird boy, Adam Driver. Yeah, so like I said, Andy Serkis, you know what I mean, who played General Snoke, you know, who was the giant sitting in the chair that was like mad weak. He looked like Voldemort, you know, mixed with Gollum. He represented that Hitler energy, that Nazi energy, born April 20th. You see what I'm saying? Manipulating the Scorpio, because the Scorpio, that's as a Scorpion, and as brothers who are Scorpio and cousins and so much family as Scorpios, I understand the energy. And it's a constant tug of war of light and darkness. It's so easy for a Scorpion to get manipulative and dark and evil. Like, we represent all the goddamn garbage and fucking nasty shit. Like, Scorpios have that potential to the utmost. We are the worst villain. However, I was going to say we're also the eagle. You see, so when we do tap into our force and we deal from it from a higher frequency, we become the hawk or the falcon, the eagle being on high and being full of light. You know, so the Scorpio directly represents that light darkness of the force and the dark side. That's why they picked the Scorpio to play this role. But go ahead, brother.
Now, I just had one comment and one last question. It's funny that you mentioned the Nazis several times, and we also talked about the sun and the black sun. It's funny you mention that because Hitler was actually obsessed with the black sun. If you research Hitler, you know, he was doing research on the black sun heavy. So it's interesting. Right. I didn't even think about that while I was watching the movie. They had the black sun. They had the black sun in the movie. Remember, that was their weapon. Their weapon was the black sun. There was a planet that absorbed a sun, right? Stuck that shit dry, and when it went black, they blasted a red beam and killed planets like they was galactus. Right. And when the general was giving his speech and he was done, they threw their arm up, just like the Nazis do. Wow. That's the shit that Hitler wanted. He wanted the death ray. That's what the whole remember what Nikola Tesla was all about. The reason why they washed his ass up because they wanted his technology for weapons. They wanted that goddamn scalar technology. And that's what that shit was in the movie, that scalar technology. They used
the solar energy. This is why your man Finn was the determining factor of the revolution being successful, because he understood the science, because he said he was a garbage man. How the hell is he a trash man? And he knows that the oscillating that the oscillating column, you know what I mean, was a part of the ship that would cause it to collapse. The oscillator. Oscillator means vibration. Oscillator means frequency. We talk about vibranium. We talking about what he possesses. The princess told him, Princess Leia organic, asked him, yo, I understand you need help, but we need to know everything you know. You can single-handedly be the individual that helps us win this thing. And he was. And he was, you know, like I said, connected with that female energy. You know, it was a connection of the two. You know?
Indeed. Now, what, KT, what do you want the people, just to kind of sum it up, and I advise everybody to go see it after you hear this breakdown. Even if you've seen it already, after hearing KT's breakdown, go see it again. But this force is not just entertainment, brother. This shit is real. So what do you want the people? What do you want the people to take from this breakdown and to take from this franchise? Because it's something being told that's resonated with our subconscious on a real strong. Otherwise, this franchise wouldn't have been so strong for so long. So what do you want the people to take from this movie, KG?
All right. What I want people to take from this movie is Sagala. Okay, Sagala is the name of a super dense metal. You know, you can equate this to vibranium, which is fictitious, obviously, in the Marvel universe. But Sagala is a super dense metal that the Dogon say that Sirius consists of. This super dense metal is the originator of the Force, because Sirius be a warp-side universe. It creates time because it creates the relationship between the sun, moon, and stars around it. It affects it, and it affects us. You know, the reason why that sun disappeared and was utilized as a death ray, and then when they destroyed it, the planet became a sun. That was the Fourth Awakening. That's the rebirth, which we're dealing with right now, because the sun, during the winter solstice, drops below the ecliptic. Takes 3 days for it to come back above the ecliptic. That is the resurrection on the cross that occurs every year. And this is why everybody is coming together in mass to celebrate, quote unquote, Christ energy. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we saw that in this movie when they destroyed the weapon and the planet became the sun. It turned into a sun. We all have a sun in us. Finn is capable of absorbing the same weapon. Remember, every weapon this cracker is making right now is based on fucking up our melanin, messing up our frequency and our DNA. In order for them to create weapons that do that, they have to replicate our own organic technology. Which means that giant-ass weapon that they had was the same shit that Finn had in his system. This is why everyone looked to him for the answer. And he answered. And then, if it's not enough, he descended in the underworld at the end of the movie. He descended. He was straight up laid out like a saw on the platform that you see on all the walls in Kennedy. Was laid out, and while he was laid, Ray went to the 51-degree bit stone in the middle of the waters and handed the jet back to the light so that shit can get popping now. Now we can do something, you know. So if I could say, you can walk away with anything. I'm hardly saying everything in this movie. This is tip of the iceberg, y'all. I'm just having fun tonight. And let's not forget that, you know, by the feminine energy also coming into being and not just coming into being, it's here, it's everywhere. We jump off of it, but by it coming into another state, you know, we're seeing this through the lead, this female character that they have, and we see it played very subtly in the scene when she first first really gets the confidence over the Force is when she does the Jedi mind trick to the Stormtrooper. Right?
Yeah.
And it works. Now, Brother Rich, I want you to answer this question. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
James Bond obviously represents a certain type of masculine energy or force that does not relate to the comparable complementary energies of a black man, black woman relationship. James Bond's more of the bachelor, blow shit up, ask questions later. He's smooth and slick now. He can get in and out the girls like nothing, but his state of mind, his energy is kind of becoming obsolete because at this point we can't just be on our James Bond shit. We got to be on our James and Jane Bond shit together,
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the point in the movie where this female character finally gets hold of the Force is when she does a Jedi mind trick or manipulates the mind of none other than Daniel Craig. That stormtrooper that she manipulated was James Bond.
Mm.
Now I want you to let me know why James Bond had a stormtrooper outfit on in that scene.
You got to tell me that one, brother. You just dropped the gem. Why James Bond in a stormtrooper suit?
Why was James Bond in a stormtrooper? Not just in a stormtrooper suit, but getting Jedi mind trick.
Yeah, getting manipulated. Right, getting manipulated. Yeah.
But he's an agent. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's a higher order. Remember, I left that out. Shoot, what was the name of the dark side in this movie? The First Order? Is that not the Spanish Inquisition? Is that not the Catholic Church? The First Order? So, if I could tell anybody anything, I would say keep your eyes open when you're watching these movies because they're not spending $200 million just to make you laugh and say, yo, that explosion was dope.
Right.
They're up to $698 million worldwide right now. They're about to hit 700 million. Which means by the time these holidays end this weekend, they would have generated $1 billion in under a week.
That's crazy. That's a lot, man.
A Billy. A Billy goat. That's what they're doing. So don't think for 1 minute they're accumulating all them funds. Who's giving them the attention? Whose minds is it? Where do you think they get these ideas from these films? They tap into our consciousness. We're always streaming. We're light streamers. You know how you stream on the internet? We're light streamers, constantly streaming photonic energy all the time. That's up for grabs. And they tap into that through their rituals, through their callings, through what they do, through the quantum understandings that they're coming across now. But see, if you know the power you possess, then you can do the same thing and use these movies to wake up and wake others up and get a better understanding about your African cosmology because it's right in your face. Now go to the bookstore, go pick up a book and start finding out more about your mythos. Where do your people come from? What is their cosmology? And you'll find out, no matter what African tribe you go to, their origins is not on this planet. They are in the stars. And more than likely, 98% of the time, they're going to be talking about either Sirius or Orion. And with that, I say HollywoodDecoded.com, greenleaf-herbs.com for all your medicinal needs. Find me on Facebook, Kamani Tate, KAMANITAIT. Find me on Know the Ledge Radio. Email me, KT.KAMANI@gmail.com or hit me up, 404-492-2026. And may the force be with you.
Indeed. May the force be with you, indeed. This brother Rich, y'all. I was in class the past hour, just listening to KT. I ain't really have a lot of questions. I'm in class right now. you're going to have me go watch this movie again just to learn some more stuff. But we appreciate the brother KT for coming on the show once again. The brother will be back next week. We're going to be dealing with something else. Stay tuned to hear that. But this brother Rich, Underground Railroad Radio, and we signing out, family. Peace.